Welcome, Yamhill County. This is Speaking Frankly. I'm your host, Howie Harkema, and our tagline is, "And how we doing?" Well, today we're doing great, and I have Victoria Ernst, who is running for Representative House District 24, and she's going to talk about her background and her platform. And so here we go. So, Victoria, what made you decide to run for representative for House District 24?
Thanks, Howie. Well, it wasn't a decision that I came to lightly. I've been realizing over the past few years, especially, that you can do a lot of good at the state level in the state legislature. I became a lawyer. I'm a human rights attorney because I wanted to help people. The first job that I had in the legal field was in tribal court. And the folks that I was working with, I was working in Montana, and they had the legal issue they were coming to me with was not the only problem that they were facing. There was a whole multitude of problems, and there was only so much that I could do as their lawyer to help them. And I think that was my first real glimpse into how much good, well-written legislation that's consistent and protective and targeted can really do for people. I don't think we should have to rely on the courts to enforce rights. I don't think that that's fair. I think access to justice is a really big concern, and how much money you have shouldn't determine what your outcome in court is, but unfortunately that's the reality for a lot of people. So I think that that I can do the most good as a member of the legislature, and I really want to be a voice for this community there, because I think there's the rural perspective is kind of left out a lot of the time in Salem too. And I think that I think Democrats from areas like this can bring a new perspective.
Big
So
changes,
voice.
yes.
Yeah.
So, Victoria, what is your background and how has your background prepared you for this office? I heard you say that you're an attorney. Would you like to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, I'm a lawyer, and I think understanding how laws are enforced and interpreted in court is really important for somebody that's going to be writing and proposing legislation. So I think that would be a really big strength that I have. But I'm also from here. So I grew up in Newburgh. I was born and raised there. My extended family is all from St. Paul, Oregon area, so just on the other side of the river. And they've been farming and serving that community for the last 5 or 6 generations. So I really have some strong connections to the community. I know the people here, the issues that we're facing. But I also have an outside perspective because I went to law school in DC. I have done some work I'm really proud of, working at the UN, working for the European Parliament, at the liaison office with US Congress, and also in Brussels, where I worked on negotiating legislation. And I think those skills will also be really helpful here, because I think new perspectives that are grounded in what really matters to this community can make a big difference.
And in this world of divisiveness and division, do you think that you can pull all of your constituents together to make a happier situation?
I hope so. I mean, one of the big things that I really want to do with this campaign, and if I'm elected, is to rebuild this community. I think we're really divided right now. The past 2 years of COVID has exposed and exacerbated a lot of issues that we have here. And we've also been kind of stuck in our own echo chambers, and we aren't talking to each other. And I think we actually have a lot more in common than we think. I've worked in like at the UN, been in the room with the delegates from Russia and China, and those are, you know, debating issues that you really don't have, like, we're fundamentally not agreeing on, right?
Right.
But I think for the most part, people here, there is a lot of common ground that we can find. And I think if we're open to talking to each other, we'll get better solutions that'll be more sustainable because we'll have more buy-in, and that will ultimately help more of the people in this community.
Right. And everybody's voice counts. And so that's really important. And the fact that you're from a rural community also helps a lot because you're going to be dealing with that same rural constituency. So,
Yeah. And
so,
I've worked in agriculture too.
oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
so I've got connections there besides just my family being really involved in ag. My first job I went to college at U of O in Eugene, and my first jobs out of college were in the nursery industry. So I worked in the nursery industry for about 6 years before I did an AmeriCorps term in Montana and then went on to law school. So I've got some connections there too, and I've worked in the hazelnut industry, which is also a really big industry here, and I've worked in the wine industry. So I understand the issues that those constituents are facing as well.
Let's talk about negotiations, collaboration, and conflict resolution. And in your past and in your present, I know you're dealing with some of these things. How will they assist you as a state representative?
Well, I'm really solution oriented. I like solving problems. Like I said, I became a lawyer because I wanted to help people. I want to help this community. And I have a lot of negotiation experience and a lot of experience working with people that I don't agree on a lot of things, but we're still able to find some common ground and get things done. And I think that we need representatives like that are willing to talk, willing to have tough conversations so that we can find solutions that somehow work for everybody. And I know that, I'm not going to agree with everybody on everything, but I don't think we have to. I think when you have differences in opinion, I think you get better solutions in the end.
Compromise. That's really important, and it seems to be a factor that no one wants to deal with right now. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
glad
think
that you do want to deal with that.
yeah, I think we've gotten really good at reacting and we've gotten really good at blaming each other for stuff, but we need to focus back on finding equitable, sustainable solutions that can work for everybody.
I agree. So I'm going to ask you just a few questions. Here's one. Now that we're almost post COVID, let's talk about those 2 years that went away for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the past 2 years have been incredibly challenging, and a lot of issues that were bubbling right below the surface or that a lot of us didn't realize were exposed. A lot of systemic problems we've really have come to the surface now. But I think with all of that challenge, there's also opportunity. And I think we really have to learn from this tragedy and get better because of it. One thing I think we should really take away from this is that we need to prioritize healthcare. We need to fund public health systems so that we're prepared the next time something like this happens. We also need to make the economy more resilient. We need to pay people living wages so they aren't facing housing instability or food insecurity because they miss a couple weeks of work because they're sick. We need to find ways so that our manufacturing industries are more self-sufficient so that we're more insulated from like global supply chain disruptions. We need to become more energy sufficient so that we're not relying so much on foreign oil and gas. And there's a lot of sustainability issues, that a lot of opportunity there too with green energy to solve some of those problems.
Right.
And I think we need to, we could right now, we're at a point where we could either go back to what we've been doing for so long that wasn't working for a lot of people, or we can get better. And I think we have to take advantage of the opportunity to get better.
So let's talk about affordable housing for a moment. Affordable housing is a big topic and issue um, in the United States right now, and we certainly need to do more about it especially for our workforce, but also for our homeless population and etc. So if you were to become the representative of District 24, what would be the highlights of the things that you would push on affordable housing?
Yeah, well, I think housing issues are probably the biggest issue facing this district, or at least the issue that touches everybody in some way, whether it's affordable housing, access to housing and housing discrimination issues, access to home ownership, or homelessness. I mean, it all of those things affect all of us, and I think affordable housing is one of the things we really have to prioritize because I mean, there's a lot of developments here in McMinnville um, that a lot of people in McMinnville that need housing can't afford. And that doesn't really enrich or help our community move forward if we're not thinking about the people that are here and what they need in housing. So I think we need to prioritize housing that is affordable for the people that are here. And we also need to be attracting businesses, new businesses here, and building up the businesses that are already here so that they can pay living wages to people and that those people can have a house and be secure that way. And then I think homelessness is also a really big concern. I think one of the things is with housing in general, we need to stop using temporary band-aid solutions to try to solve systemic problems. I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of immediate need that we have to meet. And so like and you do a ton of work with that in this community, which is really, I mean, amazing. I don't know where we'd be without you on that front. But you know, the low barrier shelter in Mac is only open 1 day a week, right?
Friday, frequent Fridays, unless it's below 32. They're going to be open this week, Wednesday,
Oh,
yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, because it's supposed to drop below 32. So,
okay. So, well, that's good, but I mean,
but it is a
it would
Band-Aid.
be better to have more than just one night of guaranteed, you know,
Right.
shelter for folks. And so we do need more of the immediate focus, but we also need some long-term solutions. We need to find ways. I mean, there's a ton of different reasons why people end up in a homelessness situation, and
Absolutely.
there's needs to be different solutions to solve those underlying problems
Every
too.
one of those situations is unique unto itself. No um, person is exactly like another person as far
Yeah.
as falling into homelessness, the reasons behind it, et cetera, et cetera. So it's
Yeah.
very unique.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. So there's it's a multifaceted issue, but I think there's a lot that we can do if we're thinking long term and trying to be proactive about solving the problems.
So the next question is on opioids and the epidemic that has befallen in Yamhill County. Would you like to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I mean, the opioid epidemic is so tragic. I It's criminal, really, what's happening, what the pharmaceutical companies have done, the distributors have done. And obviously, it's all worsened by the last 2 years of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
People are isolated and self medicating more. And we have to support folks that are recovering now. It's one of the things that's really sad to me about it is how many kids are caught up in this. I mean,
Exactly.
I went to high school in Newburgh. Newburgh High School has a horrible problem with opioids. And that's like it's just so tragic. And we need to find ways to help kids avoid that. Obviously, we need to help the kids that are stuck in that situation, and we need to find ways to hold accountable the companies and distributors that got us here because
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot that
And,
we can.
and do you see that happening? Do you see in the courts that um, uh, there, other than the one manufacturer, are being fined for what they've done?
Yes, but I'm a little bit concerned about how bankruptcy courts are being used to avoid a lot of the responsibility
Yeah.
for these companies. So that's something that I don't agree with that at all. I think that we need to hold those
There
kind
should
of.
be accountability and responsibility, right?
Yes, I think so.
Let's talk about holistic healthcare. You talked about healthcare. Do you think it's a right of every American to have healthcare?
I do. And I think healthcare is probably the biggest issue nationwide that we have. When I worked in legal aid, I would interview clients that called that had a legal issue, and regardless of what the legal issue was that they called about, whether they were, facing an eviction, whether they were being sued for a credit card debt they couldn't pay, whatever it was, when I would talk to them and we'd talk about, okay, like, well, explain what happened. Like almost every time, the root underlying problem was that they were in an accident or they got sick and had to go to the hospital, and they had this huge healthcare bill that they couldn't pay, that they got sued for, that they're probably now being garnished for because they were. Legal system is scary. A lot of lawyers can't even figure it out, to be honest. And we expect people to navigate that themselves. And if your paycheck is getting garnished because the hospital that you went to for care has sued you for that balance, and that leaves your bank account before you can pay rent, you're stuck. I mean, what are you supposed to do? And so I think we need to fix the healthcare system. And there's a lot I think we can do on that. I am actually, I've been in a program at American University that's a certificate for health inequity and care that talks a lot about, like, I mean, disparities in health outcomes across different populations, and just it's really disturbing, but it's also there's a lot we can do, because every challenge means there's opportunities, I think. But I really think that healthcare needs to be prioritized, and it's not just health isn't just the absence of illness, it's wellness, which is means we need preventative care, and we need routine care that is a lot cheaper to provide for people than to try to fix problems that get out of hand. And I don't think anybody should be in a position where they have to choose between, like, paying their rent and getting medical care they need. So
Right. I totally agree with that. Um, what do you think about for-profit healthcare? It worries me that these large insurance companies and hospitals are raking in the dollars and aren't they're giving the patient what they need, but then they sue if they can't pay it. And it leaves them in a real drastic situation, which is another lead into homelessness.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, well, going back to healthcare being a right, I think right now those, like, hospitals and the private sector with healthcare has way too much power over the system. They control everything.
They have lobbyists.
Yeah, and if the government could play a really big role in making healthcare affordable. I mean, I've lived in Europe and I had amazing healthcare when I was there. I didn't have to pay for anything. Um, and and I didn't have very good healthcare here. So I, like, it was very lucky that I could go to Europe and get healthcare that I needed. But that's not, you can't, nobody, like, people can't do that. And it's also amazing to me that healthcare is just so much more affordable other places. I
Right,
mean,
even Canada, right
yeah,
above us.
Americans pay so much more for less, for not as good of healthcare than basically any other developed countries, and even some not very developed countries. So there's a lot we can do there, and yeah.
So let's talk about sustainable economic development here in Yamhill County and beyond.
Yes. So I think obviously sustainable economic development is very important, and I think it's something that state reps can do a lot to promote. I think the key word though there is sustainable. I think we need to attract businesses that pay living wages and enrich our community. We want to attract businesses that offer advancement opportunities, businesses that are looking to develop and empower our young people. Um, that's really important. We want to be building the next generation of leaders, and so we need businesses that are going to support that. Um, but I also think we have to support the industries that are here that have helped build this community and supported it. The agricultural industries, the wine industry, tourism industry, like those manufacturing, those things have really sustained the economy here for so long. And there's also a lot of opportunity in adapting those businesses to face the changing world where our economy is changing all the time. And there's a lot of new technology out there that we can use to make those other industries that have been here a long time more sustainable so that they can continue. I mean, Oregon hazelnuts are the best, like highest quality hazelnuts in the world.
Right.
Hazelnuts are a really finicky crop. There's a reason why they grow here in Oregon and not a lot of other places. We have to kind of preserve the weather and our climate here if we're going to keep growing hazelnuts. A lot of wineries threw out all of their Pinot Noir in 2020 because of the smoke. That's not something they can do very many times and still stay in business.
Right.
So there's a lot of, I think, common ground we can find on those issues too of sustainability, if we're open to talking about creative solutions to the problem.
So with inflation the way that it is right now, and gas prices and medication prices and all of this, what do you see as a living wage for those coming into the job market?
Well, um, I mean, obviously it's different for different communities. I think in this community, though, with how rent in McMinnville is crazy expensive.
It's insane.
Yeah, I don't like, and gas is so expensive. I don't know. It's at this point, I I don't know that it's hard because there has to be a balance because we don't want to all of our businesses to go out of business because they can't afford to pay
No,
people.
I understand that.
But I also think that if you're a business and you can't afford to pay your employees a living wage, then that's maybe an indication that your business model isn't very successful. So I think it's hard for me to put a like exact number on it, but it's a lot higher than minimum wage.
Yeah, it is. Um, let's see. The next question is communities and public education systems. So we have seen a lot of turmoil in the education system in Oregon across the board, um, and specifically in Newburgh recently. Um,
Mhm.
what are your takeaways from what's occurring in those realms, and what do you think that we could do to make it better?
Well, I really think that students need to be supported and we need to create public education environments that um, where students feel welcome and supported. And there's a lot besides just education and learning like all of the subjects in
Yeah,
school
the
that
3 Rs.
happen.
Yeah,
I mean, you're developing the people that are going to go on to be our future leaders in this community.
that's exactly right.
And there's a and high schoolers, middle schoolers, I mean, they're aware of everything that's going on right now too. So I think we need to listen to them and what they need. Um, and I think we need to be better at talking to each other about issues because I think that I think public education should be a place where we can talk about different ideas and be open to debate and discussion because I think that's how people learn best is when they have access to a lot of different materials. And I'm a really firm believer in public education. I mean, I went through public schools in Newburgh, um, but I think that public education needs to be accessible too. And I think that the reality is not everybody has the same opportunities, but I think public education that's accessible can help close some of those gaps. Um, but the last couple years, with a lot of schooling being remote, there's even more gap to fill. And I think we're going to have to be really creative with how we are catching students up and preparing them for the future. And I also think we need to fund education more. I mean, teachers should make a lot more than they're making. In my opinion, they have one of the toughest and most important jobs in our society, and we need to be supporting them as well.
We have about 5 minutes left. Let's talk about accountability and responsibility in government in this time frame. There's a lot of fear of government in rural districts. How do you counteract that?
Well, I mean, I think unfortunately a lot of people have out here have lost faith in government, um, which, to be honest, isn't that surprising because this, like Yamhill County and this district in particular, are kind of forgotten about a lot of the time. I mean, we get like lumped in with Portland metro area, or we get lumped in with Salem, but those areas are very different than we are, and we have
Very.
different issues. And the reality is, I think because this seat has been held by a Republican and the power is in the hands of Democrats, um, people from this district don't even get in the room where the decisions are happening to bring that perspective. And so I think that's some value that I could really bring, is to be a voice for the community here, because I've seen what good government can do.
Yes.
If you elect people that are service oriented and solution oriented and are willing to put in the work to find the solutions that work for people, that can make a huge difference. And I just think that for a long time, this district hasn't had the representation that it deserves. So and I'm all about transparency and accountability. I have a spot on my website actually that for people to send in their thoughts as well, because I really want to hear from people. If I'm elected, I plan to hold town halls, to send out newsletters. I want it to be collaborative. I think being a state representative is you're a servant to the community. So I think you have to be accountable and honest and accessible to your constituents. So that's what I would do.
That's awesome. So on your, you have a website and it is victoriaForOregonHouse.com. And then you have a Facebook page, Victoria Ernst for HD24. I assume that there they can reach out to you if they want to get a yard sign or if they want to do door knocks or any of that type of stuff. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a spot on the website to sign up to volunteer. There's a spot to sign up for updates. There's a spot to donate if you're so inclined. Which right now, because I don't have a primary challenger, I am focusing on raising as much money as I can so that I can compete in the race for the general election, and also in just getting my message out there to folks, because I think people in this community really appreciate talking one-on-one to people.
Sure.
And so that's where I'm trying to put my energy right now, is just getting out and meeting folks and chatting. And I'd love to hear from the people in this district. So there's a spot on the website to send in comments too.
So this is going to be my very last question. And it is, how can the community assist you in your efforts? And as you said, you will need volunteers. And do you have any meet and greets or debates coming up, and when and where?
I don't have any public events coming up right now. Like I said, I don't have a primary challenger, but I am focused on helping some of the folks that are in primary races, that I think will be really good leaders in this community. So if you might see me out at your front door when I'm out canvassing to help them, or at some of their events. But for now, I've just got some private events coming up. But I am looking to have, some more house parties. So if folks are willing to invite me over to their house and invite some of their friends over, those kind of things, I'm really open to that right now. And then, yeah, sign up to volunteer. I'm working on that, putting the team together on that too right now. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Victoria, for taking time out of your day to talk about House District 24 and your campaign. Um, we hope to see you in office as soon as possible because we need somebody like you, young, fresh, ready to go, got the background for it. So thank you very, very much for being on today.
thank you, Howie. It was really good to talk to you.
It's great to talk to you too. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Um, we have many, many candidates coming up as the weeks progress here, up to May 17th. So thank you for watching and have a great day. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.